roughly 60 or so communities that made up the Wampanoag Nation, or the Wampanoag Confederacy. We have about 8 surviving communities. We're on the rebound. It's a slow process. Slow Turtle was the first Commissioner of Indian Affairs for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Spent a lot of time in state government, but what you see him doing there is what he does best. He's a lover of the children and of the culture. This part here, identity matters. If I were to be asked about where I live and who I am, this is how I would respond. I'm not a citizen of the United States. I'm not a citizen of Canada. We're not citizens of nations that we have treaties with. We're citizens of our own nations. And each of these aspects that identify me, Kisatanamu, the basis of my name comes from a snowy owl. I live as a child of the land, still in the 21st century. This has such deep meaning for me, being connected to the land now. Nayantakwat, Anochasho. Nayantakwat is an understanding about how we are to live on this earth, how we are to think, how we are to treat each other, what's the nature of our relationship. Numanunian is my family name. And Keke Danzion is the otter. In Keke Danzion is the root of my family. And because I come from, because I have two parents, my other parent is Dunaba Danzion, that's the turtle. I live at the Great Pond Place, Mashipilotan. Baba Nisanuvatotamo. Wampanoag is one of the great mothers of creation. It's that first light that you see on the eastern horizon. When it's still dark and the stars are out, that faint glow, that's Wampanoag. From Wampanoag, our identity is formed and shaped. The great gift from Wampanoag is the wampum, the wampum bells that I have right here. I'll explain a little bit more about those wampum bells, but we still use these in this time. And wampum, among the people where I come from, is about 5,000 years old. They're using wampum steadily. Very powerful, very sacred. And if you were to kind of dissect my body and take a look at this is what you'll find. Beach grass, sand, and ocean. That's the culture I come from. And there's some profoundly beautiful places in this realm. There's a place it's called Sandy Neck, 10 miles of dunes. A place in the town of Truro that has sand dunes 4 stories high. And it's kind of humorous that the U.S. Park Service tries to prevent the sand from shifting. It's really important about indigenous languages. I speak English rather well. I worry about sounding somewhat reasonably intelligent from time to time. But English doesn't inform me who I am. English doesn't tell me about my history and about my connection, about the sacredness of the land, but our languages do. If we attempt to translate our thoughts into English, about the easiest way of doing that is called word association. So if we were to word associate Manitou, somebody in the community might say, well, that's God. Manitou means God. But when we really look carefully at language, and how culture and life is embedded into the sounds. There are key aspects to the word Manitou. In the first one, it denotes that as a being, it's unattached. Maybe a better way of expressing that is that it's everywhere. In our cosmology, there are roughly about 150 manifestations of Manitou. 150 manifestations of Manitou. Manitou for the earth, Manitou for children, Manitou for women, Manitou for life. And the root word in that is one of the roots is an. Anything with an in it is talking about the mind, something about the mind, something about our emotions. And when you put e and an together, it's a life dynamic, it's a living principle. It's alive. A consciousness, if you will. In do, da, de, di are all about a process of life within, power that comes within us. So the idea about Manitou is that it's everywhere, and it's also within. A living conscious, a living being outside of ourselves, but also within us. These here, sort of, to give you an idea of where my homeland is. And this, if you can just kind of share this up. Right about here is where I'm from, Mashpee. So, some of my relatives, Popo Watahe here he's the present sachem in my community. Komita is one of the leading clan mothers in my community. These are pictures taken. My best friend Nani Pashman, love his sense of humor. He once said, "Why is it that Wampanoag people do not like spring showers?" Because they bring May flowers. This is Plymouth Plantation is in the town of Plymouth. It's a living museum, meaning that it replicates what Plymouth looked like in the 1620s. It was organized and established in the early 1950s. It didn't have a Wampanoag component to that, so it was just the pilgrims. And it's kind of humorous because, due to Thanksgiving, people are accustomed to seeing, Englishmen and Indians. So the touring public, they were really fascinated with the depiction of Plymouth colony, but they would always be asking, well, where are the Indians? And it would be consistent. So the plantation decided, well, okay, we're sort of under that pressure. So the following season, they had these cutout figurines, cardboard figurines. They had all these kinds of information on it so people could read it, but can't talk to cardboard. Kind of thing. So at some time that morphed into hiring white people to portray Wampanoag people. And of course that didn't last too long. So eventually they got the idea of hiring other Indian people, not Wampanoag people, but other Indian people. And that was okay to some extent. But eventually they had to break down and hire Wampanoag people. So in 1975, the Wampanoag Indian program began. And a few pictures before that, the Wampanoag program at Plymouth Plantation has become like a research center for Wampanoag people. And we began to redevelop our understanding about how to build longhouses and our traditional wear, our food sources. So it's like a research center, and it's really been a wonderful opportunity for young Wampanoag people to understand the mechanics of the culture. But the difference between the colonists and Wampanoag people is still there. It's amazing. So this is my cousin, and she's in a replica of a longhouse. And we have longhouses built the old way in Mashpee, and from time to time we like to gather in there, counsel with each other, hold ceremonies, still being used like that. We have powwows too. These are pictures of some of the powwows that we have. Usually around the 4th of July weekend. Mashpee's been holding a powwow for, I think this is the 81st annual powwow. So people have come from all over. On your right here, this is one of the communities in Wampanoag people. This is on the island of Martha's Vineyard, Aquina. These are multicolored clay cliffs where the people on the island, only the Wampanoag people have access to that, and this is where they make their pottery. So very astounding, beautiful pottery. The woman in this picture here, her name is Sherry Andrews, and she's the current chairman for the Bayhead Aquina Wampanoag community. And that's Sherry on the left. And this is what we do best. We like to sing and dance. This is one of my ancestors, James Mai. And this is my cousin here. This is this is known as Witu. Wampanoag traditional history, we would have a longhouse. The people would gather, our clans would gather in the longhouse for the winter, and in the spring and summer months we would break up and move to our planting fields or our fishing fields, and we would live in a smaller, what we call Witu. I really want to build one of those, the old lodges, and live in that for as long as I can. But I think Mega Mahan, my wife, has some other ideas. This is our contemporary longhouse. We use it frequently when we're having meetings. It's also is known as the old Indian church in Mashpee. The original church was put together, was built in 1684, the first church in New England. But we still use it as a longhouse. This was taken during our annual powwow. We have meetings and ceremonies in the longhouse. I love this picture. It kind of this reminds me of me. This is my daughter, Swahani. She's a beautiful young lady. She's a championship dancer. She's into fashion design, excellent beadwork and quill work, and just love her to bits. She's a budding actress. She's been in a couple of movies. She's been in a couple of documentaries. And she's doing some modeling right now in Arizona. That's one of my favorite pictures of her. And this is my youngest daughter, 18. Her name is Jusen. I love her to bits. And this is my son and his girlfriend, Jusen, and my sister, Apamukwe. And that's my boss. She's the one that taught me to listen to women. And this is Jusen in her cradle boy. This is my friend Robert. He's in Awitu on Plymouth Plantation. He's also an interpreter. I was really surprised to see this. I think this came out in 2011. a U.S. dollar commemorative coin. But I was really surprised that they had the Wampanoag Treaty on there. So all up until that time, they tried to deny the existence of anything Wampanoag, and then had to kind of to honor the treaty. It's, oh, you know, maybe there's a breakaway. Something's happening, something's shifting in the atmosphere. So it's really good to see that. Mashpee is actually a collective of many small communities into what's now Mashpee proper. But my community is Papaneset. And this is some of the textiles of the traditional bags and wares of my community. This is two favorite modes of transportation. Nowadays we have several ponies of anywhere from 250 to 450 horsepower. We get around with those two. The wampums are significant all along the northeast coast. The wampum is these three here are Wabanaki, present Wabanaki belts. This is a Confederacy belt. This is a delegation to the Confederacy belt. This is the Friendship Treaty belt. And much like when we were making treaties with each other, long before Columbus came here, we used wampum with everything of significance. Marriages, ceremonies of all nature, symbols of our offices. If I was a sachem, I would have wampum attached to my responsibility. Anybody who's doing anything official has to carry wampum with them. And wampum is the seat of the ceremonies. And much like how the treaties were made with the English, there was wampum. When they were making treaties with the French, there was wampum. And much like how the people here on the plains, when they were making treaties with the United States government and perhaps with the Canadian government, they used the pipe. The pipe was there. And what the significance of sharing the pipe was that this agreement was to be forever, and we brought the sacred into it. So it was a sacred covenant between each other, just like how we were making sacred covenants with each other as allies. When Grandma was talking about the Iroquois Confederacy, this was long before the Europeans came here, and we were making peace with each other. So by the time Columbus arrives, most of North America, most of Central America was in some form or another in Confederacy relationship with each other. The existence of Confederacy means we're not at war. We find ways to settle our differences in council when we talk to each other. And wampum on the East Coast was a guiding force to those principles. This belt is rather, this is an Iroquois belt. The first belt, I think, that the Haudenosaunee Confederacy made with George Washington. This was a treaty belt at the Treaty of Canandaigua. What's interesting about this belt is that George Washington had this made and brought it to the Iroquois Confederacy to make a treaty. Pretty good job, eh? This is a Lenape peace belt with William Penn. And this is the infamous two-row wampum. I say that because initially this was made with the Iroquois Confederacy and the Dutch, the first wampum with a European nation shared. With all due respect, probably shouldn't, in good etiquette is I don't talk about other people's teachings, but it's a very prolific belt, and what it suggests is the relationship, the proper the proper relationship, the political relationship between two nations. The top is representing the people of the boat, and the bottom represents the people of the canoe. You know, the land of the people are extending our friendship and our relationship with each other, cemented by the sacred. We become part of a great family. You in your boat, us in our canoe, down the river of life side by side, guided by peace, friendship, and respect. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but this is a kind of an understanding about the ceremonial cycles that make up our calendar year, and the types of ceremonies that we have, and we'll come back to this. But when we talk about ceremony, we express ceremony in the terms of giving thanks, Thanksgiving. So in the course of a yearly cycle, we don't have just one Thanksgiving, we have multiple Thanksgivings. Every season has ceremonies attached to it. This is an expression, Nyantrapat. Nyantrapat, it kind of reminds me of the Chinese understanding about the way, the Tao, the way things are, the way that they are to be. Nyantrapat, freely translated, talks about the life above our heads and the life below our feet. Nushon Gizuk, Father Sky, and Timikoho, the great mother. When Grandma was talking about the great journey of 14 inches, the heart and the mind. You know, the heart is considered the seat of all things feminine, and the mind is considered the seat of all things masculine. And that's the process of how those two great forces in life and the universe works together. In other words, it's our grandmas who inform us what to do, and it's our grandpas who tell us how to do it. I'm working on a project to describe that. I have this quirky thing about the way that I look at life. And I've come to the conclusion that God has no opposite. And that there's only love in the universe. And how I explain this is on this end of the scale is Leo, the lowest energetic output. Right? It's on this level that we make room for prejudice, hate, racism, kind of thing. You know, we don't put that outlook, that love power into full force. You know, so we resist and we hold back and we do things to each other. We make each other feel really bad. But there's still love there. And if I can characterize that as an example, I think of some of the worst violators of humanity, like Hitler. You know, Hitler is considered this great monster, but Hitler was in love for this country. He was in love with spirituality. He was deep mysticism and everything. We would never know that part of him. You know? All we know is the monstrous things that he does. But everybody has love attached to it. You can't escape that. It's part of our institution, our constitution. You know, the energetic level of God. You know, as Grandma was saying, miracles happen. You know, when we're open, when we're doing things out of the sake for doing them because they need to be done. As an example of that, I think of December 24th, Christmas Eve. Think about Christmas Eve. It's probably the one time out of the whole year that we're open to each other. We do things to each other. We're not, for the sake of doing it. Our sense of community and camaraderie and family You know, it's a miracle that we have this and we're not prodded to do something like that. You know, we work out of that sense of love. December 24th. And then December 25th comes and December 26th, we're sort of back where we were. But I'm suggesting that it's really important that we're not looking, you know, if we're looking for social change, social transformation, you know, it doesn't come from revolution. It comes from evolution. We need to evolve from where we are and do the right thing. It's in ourselves, you know. If we listen to Grandma in the heart, she tells us what to do. You know, and we think about, well, how do we do this? But definitely do what we're supposed to be doing. You know, those instructions are enlarged in the heart. So that's why I'm kind of working on this project, the spectrum of love. Spectrum also in the sense of frequencies, like light, prisms. All right, this picture here, the person, he's deceased. This person is known as Wamsutta. Wamsutta. Wamsutta was the sachenship that passed from his father, Osamikwan, who is the Massasoit who passed away. Wamsutta inherited that position. He became the new Massasoit. Plymouth Colony forced him to come to the colony, come to Plymouth. And they made demands on him that they wanted to ensure that he was going to be in compliance, you know, to English law. You know. And while he was there, you know, he spoke of attempting or wanting to maintain the peace, but he was poisoned and he was killed through that poison. And that's where Pomedakama, or King Philip, came into power. His brother was poisoned by Plymouth. And that's a depiction of that. And the last piece here, you know, as Grandma was talking about, you know, we kind of carry this legacy of innuendo. Anything with the term indigenous, Aboriginal, Indian, Native American carries a kind of an energy that we're somewhat less. We're not the same as everybody else. We're somewhat less. We're diminished. Because that's the legacy that's behind the usages of these terms. Thank you. So, in the next few minutes, I want to propose to you perhaps a different way of looking at Thanksgiving. The root word for us, nukdabadantamun, the state of being in enough. Dabat. Dabat comes from dabi. Dabi is talking about enough. And what we're saying, when we say that, we say that in our ceremonies. Dabat. Nukdabadantamun kashkara yawajya. We're saying to the source of life, you have fed me well. I'm thankful. My heart is full. Dabi, enough. I have enoughness. That's where that's coming from. I express it. In every moment, in every opportunity that we have, we express that desire. Because when you have enough, you know, everything's okay. And it's not a personal enoughness. My family has to be well. The loved ones have to be well. Everything is in its proper place, and I'm content. The idea, the spirit of that, Dava, and we use it in that construct. And we're truly thankful. So those major times, every season has a time of celebration. Every season past that. And then there's ceremonies between the seasons. There's daily ceremonies left up to the individual to do that. And I've learned over my own journey that if you make an effort to meet the sacred, it has a profound influence on the way that you think and the way that you live. Profound influence. I can feel it. I can feel it in this room. I can feel it in the opportunities that we have. But there's resistance. There are some of us in society that doesn't want to hear the other side of the story and are perfectly content with the pretensions. Because we're really pretending that everything is right, and it's not. And when we continue to deny a voice of the other, a place for the other, we deny the diversity, the richness and diversity, we all lose something of our personal integrity. I would much rather see out of every classroom who is depicting Thanksgiving with pilgrims and Indians, I would rather you see take the Indian out completely. Don't even bother with us. But if we want to keep the Indian in there, then let's start working together to really know who those people are. Even more so. More so than that, let's really be thankful. Not just wait on one time of the year to express it, but to express it every single day. That Thanksgiving becomes the way that we live. Because that will make that journey, that 14-inch journey, meaningful and significant. But that's my story. I really wish, as again, that North Americans will begin to have a sense of what it is to be part of this land as family. Because I think that is the only future that we're going to have.